100, 100, 100. Yes, we did it. Nick and I made it to 100 episodes. I can't believe it. Nick can't believe it. Hopefully you can't believe it. And if you're listening to this, I don't know, maybe you've listened to 99 other episodes. Actually, if you have, that'd be really cool. Let us know. Send us an email, info@worktalkshow.com, to tell us if you've listened to every episode of the Work Talk Show. How cool would that be? Actually, just tell us how many you've listened to. Then maybe there's some prize we could come up with for whoever listened to the most or the least. What if this is the first show you listen to? That'd be kind of crazy. As you can tell, I am making this up as I go. I'm sitting here with my little buddy Cal sitting on my lap. Cal, you want to say hi? He is homesick with me today. Hi. There you go. Say hi. All right. Anyways, Cal is home with me today, and we are... Nick and I couldn't be more excited about 100 episodes. We've had so much fun so far with this podcast. And want to also announce that we're going to be doing a host-only show for episode 101, where we're going to be kind of recapping the past 2 years and talking about, you know, some of our best moments, what we've learned, how much fun we've had, what we would do differently, and some other interesting announcements. So hopefully, if you are listening to this one now, you will listen to 101 with us and join us next. But enough about that. Let's talk about this particular episode with Chris Brogan and Ann Handley. I think Chris was like guest number 2 and Ann was guest number 4, or vice versa, something like that. But lots has changed in their lives over the past 2 years since we first talked with them. I mean, Nick and I have certainly chatted with them a lot over the past 2 years, but this is the first time they were back on the Work Talk Show. Great conversation, extended episode. I think this is over an hour long, and I'm not even going to say I hope you'll enjoy it. I know you'll enjoy it. If you're a listener of the Work Talk Show, this was just a great way to go with show number 100. So sit back, relax, don't text while you drive, and listen to this week's episode number 100 of the Work Talk Show with Chris Brogan, Ann Handley, Nick Westergaard, and me, DJ Waldo.
It's the Work Talk Show, talking through how work gets done today with crazy smart guests and your hosts, DJ Waldo and Nick Westergaard. Let the Work Talk begin.
Hello, and welcome to the Work Talk Show, our weekly podcast on how work gets done today, featuring crazy smart guests and me, Nick Westergaard, and with me, as always,
DJ Waldo.
And DJ, who do we have on the special 100th episode of the Work Talk Show?
We have the one, the only, Ann Handley. Ann Handley was, believe it or not, guest number 4 on the Work Talk Show, published on Halloween Day of 2012. Second female ever on the show, first guest that we did live. I'll let you interpret that how you will.
I don't like how you phrase that.
I mean, we were together. We were in the same room, I think, when we at the Social Brand Forum.
It's not getting better.
Okay. We'll edit that out. And then secondly, we have Chris Brogan, guest number 2, October 16th, 2012. Chris and Ann, how are you both? Chris first.
I'm number 2.
Okay. It's
the joke just kind of makes itself.
It does.
That's
yes.
Awesome.
Ann, are you number 1?
No, I'm here.
Okay. Did I tell you this show is serious? We do it sort of.
Oh, very serious.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a solemn podcast.
No joking around here. Okay. So what we want to talk about today in our 3 minutes of preparation before this show, which is 3 minutes more than we normally do. We want to talk a little bit more about, obviously, how you both get work done, but specifically how things have changed, if you can remember way back when to 2 years ago. I mean, Chris, you're a couple books prior 2 years ago. That didn't come out right. And you have a best-selling book. Chris, you've dramatically changed your lifestyle, and you built a tiny house. You've changed your business, Chris, and you're still at Marketing Profs.
Anna's still doing what she was doing.
Still doing what you're doing, just in a smaller house now.
I was going to say, there's now a small house added to the whole mix.
So I'll start with I'll start with Anne this time, since Chris would like to be number two.
Chris is number two.
Right. Anne, just take us back,
Yes.
like how things have changed for you work-wise over the past 2 years and how you get work done, let's say.
Well, as you pointed out, I am doing the exact same job that I was doing 2 years ago. So nothing has changed at all for me whatsoever. No, I'm kidding. So I'm talking to you right now from my tiny house, which is actually not a full service house. There's no plumbing, so it's a half a house, but it is my new work shed, as I call it, in my backyard, and I love it. It's I can look at the house from here, but it's a world away at the same time because it gives me a place to do focused work that I have a hard time doing otherwise. I'm the last person to say that I'm the best at anything, but I do think I am the world's best procrastinator. So if there's anything else I could possibly do aside from doing really focused work, and for me that's like writing or writing a new presentation or something that really does take a lot of effort and a lot of power for me, then I will tend to do almost anything else, including things that I don't like to do. So this house has been great because it sort of focuses me in a way that allows me to get stuff done a whole lot more efficiently. And I just like being in here.
That's interesting because it actually makes me think of this is one of those smooth segues, but it makes me think of when Chris was on talking about hard focused tasks. And Chris, I think you mentioned a Barnes and Noble or somewhere, a coffee shop nearby, where when you had a very specific project that you would go to, and it's interesting because it kind of seems like, Anne, you've created your own somewhere else to go to do the focused thing, but instead of having to go somewhere else, it's kind of an interesting combination of those concepts because you're still at home. But
right,
not.
I am. I have to walk across the yard. So.
Do you find yourself, Anne, drinking more water during the day in your tiny house so you can leave the tiny house to use the facilities? Is that like your excuse? Because that's what I would do. I'd be like, gotta get up again. Gotta go pee. Sorry. I'd like to stay in here. I'd like to work on that, but...
Yeah, I don't know if I have the bladder for a tiny house without a restroom. I'd have to dig some sort of trench. It's too much information again.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I don't have the bladder for a tiny house. That should be your new tagline.
That's what I'm known for.
Which would be a good segue to Chris, number two.
As he's number two.
Talk to us about your bladder, Chris, and the capacity you have for working in long stretches. Actually, in all seriousness, though, I am curious about that. So
about his bladder?
No,
About my bladder.
No, about how, Anne talked about, being the world's best procrastinator. Where do you fall on the procrastinator continuum?
So I'm very bad at doing grown-up things, like bills and taxes and things like that. And so, for instance, as Anne was saying that, I was looking over to the left of my desk, which is where U.S. mail goes to die. And I have 4 stickers from the post office, 2 of which say final notice, which is funny because they lie and they give me more notices. And it's certified mail. So one of the things I know is that anything I want doesn't usually come certified, like checks aren't certified and catalogs aren't certified and T-shirts and crap from Amazon is not certified. Certified equals some bad person. And by bad, I mean wants money that I probably owe them, is trying to get me. So I haven't taken any action. And it's amazing because guess what happens? Nothing. Like, eventually I'll get an email or a phone call like, hey, we've been trying to send you mail, but like you aren't signing it or something. So I'm great at procrastinating on things that have no real bearing in my life, besides legal consequences and things like jail. But what I can do really well is I can create stuff that helps the people that I choose to serve. So I figured that those first problems I mentioned usually get solved one way or another, with police or something. And then the second level of problems are just things that I do all day, which is try to create and produce. I drink almost 2 gallons of water a day, so my bladder works really well. But I would say that if I had a tiny house like Anne's, there would be a certain patch of shrubs nearby that just couldn't grow for unknown reasons.
Or that would be very well fertilized, much greener.
Would it be called the tiny patch?
Oh.
Could very well be the
just
20
asking.
pounds.
I'm just trying to get a sense of it. So Chris, I've certainly followed your path over the last few years, and some big changes for you. And one of the things I've noticed certainly is your focus on, and you just kind of highlighted it for me, but your focus on the things that matter has been. And I don't know you well enough to know that you weren't as focused on those things before, but I feel like you've got what matters down for your personal life and your business life, and that's where you spend your time and energy. Is that fair to say?
That's reasonable. I mean, I could just tell you that it's been a process it's a very inside out, outside in kind of a feeling of once you really finally figure out what's kind of important, you don't have to waste as many calories as everyone else does. And you can just really bring to bear all of the things that you think you could deliver to the universe in a much more concise way. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to cover things like, marketing trends. That's great because that could be someone's passion and they could really want to do that. And I would say good on you. But then, once you find a passion, once you find something that's just really deep inside you, and it could serve some other people, I think that a lot of things just fall away. So for instance, I mean, I'm very much in love with what Anne has produced, and yet I'm still waiting for her book of essays. And to me, that, but that's me. That's sort of me, trying to telegraph what I wish Anne's passion would be. But I will say that, when she wrote her deep, meaningful, personal stuff on AnneHandley.com, I was her biggest fan. And I think that where I spend most of my time these days is talking to people about that and trying to run far away from people who want to ask me about Snapchat business plans.
So Chris, I would dispute you on your last statement around you want Anne to write that, and you've been the biggest advocate for that, because I would say I've probably been up there as the biggest advocate, and my mom, interestingly enough, has been up there as well, because every great blog post on AnneHandley.com I send to my mom, and she says, I want to read more. And so there.
You guys are awesome.
Your mother. That's all I'm going to say.
My mom.
Your mom.
Oh, now it's going to get there, huh? Now we're going to my mom.
Great episode, Yo Mama, here.
But I think that is, I love what you say about that too, Chris, and especially as a good segue to Anne. I mean, Anne, you've, again, I did the video review of your book, and I love it. But man, I could not agree more with Chris. Like the stuff you write. I mean, we're about to get a new puppy in our house. The last thing we need. One of the reasons is because of that blog post you wrote about, or several posts you've written about your little ones.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of passion that bleeds through those posts.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's absolutely true. And Chris knows this too, but part of my reluctance to really lean into that stuff, that sort of side of my writing, is because, I think when I first launched AnneHandley.com, Chris is right. It had the title of Anarchy. I was writing it very much just for me and a few fans like Chris and your mom, DJ. But I do have a reluctance to sort of make that my thing. I'm worried about, I don't know, monetizing that, a word I hate, by the way. Just thinking about, making that a business, I don't know. I feel allergic to that concept in a way. So, I mean, honestly, I'm sort of still working through that in my head, but that has been my reluctance to do anything more than that, which I don't know. Maybe I'll figure out a way that feels good, and maybe I won't. But that's just where I'm at right now.
Can you repeat the word you hate again? Because I don't know about you guys, but it got cut out for me.
You didn't hear?
I really didn't hear it. I got
oh, really?
out.
Monetize.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. For me,
it
it went blank for a second. So.
Well, it's interesting because I've talked, and I think recently with you about when I draw in my and that's the trouble I've had with that too and it's an odd thing because it makes me think, because it's drawing related, it makes me think of Austin Kleon, and since we're all showing our work when it's out there, it's almost like it seems like this fast shoot to monetizing things, and it's almost like, how does your personal writing, your personal drawing still exist? I don't know if what I'm trying to say makes sense, but it seems like, because I get your struggle. I'm obviously not articulating it well, but and beyond that, as we're all so busy, as we're all working differently, it's tricky to find time to do another thing.
Well, Nick, going back to yours, it's so funny the four of us are talking about this because I think the four of us, or the three of us, Nick, were all the ones encouraging you to do more of the Nick Doodles on when Vine first came out, right? Wasn't it? I remember, Chris, you said something, and we were all like, come on, do more.
I know. And then I at the Profs B2B forum, drew my deck there and had a lot of fun doing that. And then I drew some after that, and now I've kind of slowed down.
Well, I think that's sort of relevant. Maybe we can dive into this a bit more. But this idea of I heard this great podcast with Jason Surfer App is his last name today, and he talked. He's got this podcast called Office Hours, Invisible Office Hours with Paul Jarvis. They just wrapped up season 1, and he talked about they had this great conversation around side projects. And I'm curious. Maybe we'll start with Chris here on this one. But I'm curious for you. You guys both have your day-to-day business and what you do that makes money. And then, I think all of us have these things that we're also interested in, and let's just call them generically side projects. Chris, are there any things that you're doing that you would consider side projects that could turn into something monetized, or things that are just fun to do on the side?
So everything I do that gets to the level of project these days is 100% ingrained in what I'm doing for owner. And I know that sounds, religious or something, but really, nothing at all. What I suffered from the last several years as a fledgling entrepreneurial type was, oh, look, something I could do. And I would run in all directions. And what I found was that you can run in all directions, and that the universe will definitely facilitate that and reward you pitifully as well. And you could try to be Richard Branson and launch 400 companies, but he has a few 100,000 employees to help him with that, and I do not. And so what I've learned to do is really kind of bucket all that stuff away and really focus on the absolute sharpest point that I can drive, and how do I help? Tamsin Webster, who works now for Oradium, says, in her advanced communications training, which is like the best course I've ever taken, the goal is to powerfully land a small number of big ideas. And I think that there's no better way to focus on what I've been doing than that. So no, I don't have drawing Vine type projects anymore. And I don't have, side projects for fun, which makes it sound sort of like my life is fun and joyless, but my life is absolutely filled to the brim with fun. It's just all of my fun now definitely feeds a very specific plan and a very specific system. And I guess the only things that qualify as fun beyond that is, I play with my kids. We do like Pokemon and stuff like that. And, I'll occasionally shoot virtual people in a virtual video game. And that's about it. That's what I got.
Well, as long as it stays virtual.
But I would say what you're doing is your passion, is your what you really enjoy doing. So you could make the argument that's your side projects all bundled into one big project.
Yeah, my side project is my primary project. My whole project is equipping owners for success. And the way I've been doing it is just trying to figure out what is that secret formula? What's everyone struggling with? And how do I give them the best possible way to turn insights into something they can do actionably? And it's just a fun puzzle. I mean, it's really kind of like working on a chemical formula. Like if you've seen Interstellar, that joyless piece of film, I am basically the Michael Caine of this endeavor.
And how about for you? Do you have side projects, or are you? I know you know the answer.
Or anywhere, or anywhere where you're Michael Caine, that would count also.
See, again, I have a thing where I hardly ever see movies when they're out, and so I never get cultural references, and I always end up like the person at the party nodding along, not getting the joke. So that just happened again right here.
And if it makes you feel better, I was nodding along too. Not a clue.
I haven't seen it yet. And the dorky thing that we talked about on a recent episode of the Work Talk Show is I love going and seeing movies in the middle of the day because I can, and I don't do it enough. And DJ, you kept mentioning, and a lot of people, how good St. Vincent was. I actually created a calendar entry for going and seeing a movie at noon yesterday, and did.
And it was awesome. Am I right?
It was awesome.
Bill Murray. Possibly his best performance ever? Or am I going too far?
I think he could win for this one because it had enough of the very good stuff. I'm partial to Lost in Translation.
Awesome movie too. Did either of you see it? Just quick sidebar here, Anne or Chris. Did you guys see St. Vincent?
I've seen every movie ever made.
All of the movies, you get them hardwired into your head.
I've never seen any movie ever made.
And that's why we've called you both here today.
Right. Okay, let's move on then from St. Vincent, which was a wonderful movie. I cried, I laughed.
This episode is sponsored by St. Vincent and the good people.
Yeah, 100 episodes in.
We're going to send Harvey Weinstein his bill for...
Anne, side projects.
DJ. Yeah, so I don't necessarily have side projects that I'm working on right now. I mean, I think, I think everybody writes, my most recent book. I think that in a way was very much my sort of passion, rolled up or sort of coated in a marketing crumb, I guess you could think of it that way, breaded in marketing. So it's my passion.
Panko crusted.
Yeah, exactly. It's my panko crusted passion right there. But no, I mean, that book is all about how to write better, and more generally, I really was trying to impart a little of the passion that I have for writing and telling true stories well to, in this case, a marketing audience. But, more generally, I think it applies to almost anybody out there. At least, most of the parts do. Part 6 is really more about things marketers write, but more generally, every other part of it, I think, just applies to writing better for anybody who wants to do so, and I think we all should. So that's truly, I think, a crossover in a sense. One foot in my true love of great writing, both producing and reading, and then the other foot in the marketing space. So I mean, I think that has been kind of my side project, but because it is a side project in the sense that marketing profs is my day job, it's where I spend most of my time, and certainly there was no imperative for me to do Everybody Writes. I mean, there was no one who said you have to do this as part of your job. It's something that I wanted to do. And as you guys, know, I mean, you don't make a whole lot of money from writing a book. So that it certainly wasn't driven by that. This was certainly just driven by the fact that I had something that I wanted to say, and I said it.
Very cool.
Mic drop.
Mike, that was Mike and what?
I feel like I'm asking a lot of questions here, Nick. So stop me if you're chomping at the bit.
I'm not chomping.
Okay, Chris. I want to talk about health and fitness and the importance of work when it comes to being healthier, both physically and mentally. Because I know that you have gone through, dare I say, a transformation over the last 12 to 18 months. So maybe talk about that a little bit and the importance of being healthy physically and emotionally and mentally and getting work done.
There were a bunch of different reasons why this clicked into place. And one of them was just that I was thinking, one is that having a better half like Jacqueline Carley, who is, a fitness professional and someone who's, got her master's in nutrition and all that, and was started back in on competitive bodybuilding, that kind of, makes you not necessarily want to sit on the couch having, deep fried lasagna while she's, eating chicken and rice and whatever. You kind of want to match your partner in commitment on that. That's one level. The other is that, I decided that, as an entrepreneurial type, I had really let my body kind of have its way because I was really trying to focus on all the cerebral stuff. And then one day you just kind of realize, wow, that's weird. My body's connected to my head and I kind of need the whole assembly to get around near as I can understand. So that was that. The other was that one day I was at a big conference. I almost named the conference, which would probably be a little rude. And I was thinking about the fact that, 1 in 3 people is pretty obese. And I was like, wow, in our community, it's more than 1 in 2. And I was part of it. I'm still technically obese if you go by the government, but who would? And I was just looking around going, wow, we're all just like big round people because we're pretty much all motivated to sit in front of our computers all day. And I just thought, I don't really want to contribute to that. And so those are some of the reasons. And then I guess as the added side effect, holy cow, I learned that the more time I spend really devoting and focusing on getting myself in order physically, it has mental benefits, it has chemical benefits, it has business benefits. I learned a lot about business in the gym. And I was quite pleased to read in the Fortune magazine article that came out fairly recently that Anthony Robbins, one of the things he does when he's doing executive coaching with CEOs and world leaders and whatnot is he gets their physical selves in order first before he really tackles their mental problems, because it turns out that there's a lot you learn from that process that then translates into other parts of your business.
Well, I remember, Chris, when you did the your other podcast, Owner's Mind, and you had the couple episodes of I think you called it the Three Fat Guys with Derek and
Derek Overby and Hal Lublin.
And Hal, yeah.
Did a lot of fun. It was great because we were just talking about what it's like to start to go through these transformations, and Derek and his wife are just doing great. They're part of a small little private group that I run about people doing health transformations, and he's done tons. I mean, he's down like 3 or 4 waist sizes from when he started. So it's a lot of fun just because it's not that everyone has to choose the same thing, but helping people who feel like they really weren't ever going to get to feel a sense of fitness that they wanted again has just been a really rewarding process, more so than teaching people how to tweet better.
I love that so much. I also think that, because as you guys know, or at least I know you know this, Chris, I started working out with a personal trainer just over a year ago, and what it did for me was a couple of things, kind of like you're talking about. It suddenly made me reframe how I thought about myself. I went from sort of spectacularly incapable to, at least in some areas, spectacularly capable according to my own metrics, not at Olympian, metrics by any measure like that. But at the same time, just thinking of myself as somebody who could do something like 10 push-ups in a row, that was such an eye-opener for me, and it just made me feel capable in other ways as well. So I love what you're saying. I think it's absolutely true.
And didn't you put something in the book, or I get all of your different...
Like the first, in the introduction, I believe, leads to the push-up story.
About it.
Yeah.
Right. So, the push-up story is just that, and I think that's true of so many things in life. The analogy I draw in the book is to writing. It takes practice and it takes a sense of habit and commitment. Just like the commitment that Chris made and that I made and so on. It also reminds me of, did you guys ever hear that story? I think it's in a David Sedaris book, but he compares your life to a 4-burner stove. So if you think about, a stove top with 4 burners on it, one is for friends, one's for family, one's for health, and one's for work. And if you can get all of those things, sort of going at the same time. So in other words, you're in good shape with your friends, with your family, with health, and with work, then that's kind of the definition of a successful life. But very often, people are only operating with 2 cylinders on or 2 burners on, or sometimes with 3 if they're really good or if they're really lucky. And so I think it's hard, to have all 4 things operating, at full potential. I know for me, I can't say that I have all 4 operating at full potential. Most of them are pretty good, but there's some friends I think that would argue with that since they haven't seen me for months since I've been on the road. So
see, the only challenge I have with the burner analogy is I'm looking at my range right now is one of my burners is actually a simmer only.
Oh,
so I don't know.
Yeah, technicalities.
I'm just saying, like maybe my health sometimes goes to simmer only. I don't know.
That's an even better analogy. What if one of your burners is simmer only? Who do you put on top of that?
Yeah, exactly.
But Chris, you said inside out, outside. It's interesting though. I don't know which one, what feeds what there, but and Anne, like you talking about. Once you can do that, there's so many other, if you can control that, that's why the Tony Robbins angle too is, of getting yourself in order, that it's about so much more than that.
So Jason,
that was one of my famous Nick non-questions.
And this is my attempt at bailing him out and moving to the next question.
I'm sort of known for that.
I like the way that Nick says interesting.
Interesting, yes. That is a Nickism.
Yeah, that's a Nickism for sure.
It's funny, Ann. I was literally just about to text you and say, count the number of interesting Nick says. But then I was like, oh, that's probably like behind the back. And then Nick feels weird about it because he doesn't know. And now I just said it openly.
I know. Now, this was much better.
Yeah, this is much less awkward now, right? Interesting. What the hell was I going to say? Damn it.
I don't know. You had something.
Oh,
Bail me out.
talking about, I had something else about, health. So I can't remember now if this was public or if this was Jason Keith just texted me about this, but past Work Talk Show guest Jason Keith and friend of the show and friend of all of ours said something to me about as he's growing his business, Social Fresh, he's putting more of a focus and emphasis, or emphasis, as some people say.
I've heard
On the right syllable.
On the wrong syllable. Damn it. He's putting more of a focus on health and making sure his staff is, that they're healthy as part of them becoming better employees. Chris, I feel like you might be closer to this in some of the work you're doing with, with your clients and some of the courses you're doing. Are you seeing that as a trend at all, or is this? I mean, if Tony Robbins is doing it, I mean, certainly other people are, right?
Sure. Well, I mean, one of the things that Jacqueline and I launched in this space was a magazine called BossFit Magazine. So it's bossfitmag.com, which is about fitness and health for the busy professional. And it is definitely something that gets a lot of attention, and a lot of people pay attention to it. And I think that the reason is that we're all trying to figure out, how the heck do we, do this? How do we figure out our, I think a lot of us just think that there's not enough time in the day, but that's just baloney. We just haven't figured out where everything fits. And so what people are starting to say is, I can do it all. I can, decide what all equals. And a lot of times what I'm telling people is it turns out what suffers is your Game of Thrones currency. Like you can't necessarily be up on who's doing what in Westeros or whatever it's called. And that's what suffers. So it's fun to me because I think that there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of ways that you can help people understand how these things all interleaf. But I think that it's just great also because one of the other things that a lot of us seem to be missing in our life when it comes to our business life is any real sense of getting anywhere. Like we always are sort of like paddling a canoe and we're just like, oh, yep, still paddling. And success seems to be measured in haven't fallen out of the canoe lately. And I think that something as simple as fitness, you get in, you get your work done, you get out, you're like, I've checked it off. And if nothing else, that gives us that sense of a little bit of accomplishment in our day. And I think that the beauty is if you're lucky, it's integrated to everything else you're doing.
Chris, I remember you wrote, I want to say years ago, this post about, I think it was just called busyness, and sort of reminds me of this idea of that we all, kind of like the analogy of paddling the canoe. We're all just, times where, you ask somebody, hey, how's it going? Oh, really busy. Oh, yeah, work's been so busy lately. And lots of times we're doing busy and not actually like checking things off or doing things. And I think your point about fitness is kind of a nice thing because you can check it off and you do see, if you do continue with it, you do see results.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm kind of on a bit of a campaign to make people not say that they're really busy because first off, we're all really busy. So who cares? That's like, how are you doing? I'm breathing air today, man. Air, taking it in, letting it out sometimes. And, that's not interesting. And then second off, the kind of people who usually tell me they're busy, either they're telling me I'm not really effective because, Branson, when I interviewed him, didn't say to me, I'm very busy. He just talked to me about stuff he was into. You got to imagine Branson's pretty much busier than all of us. So I looked at that. And then the other is that a lot of times we're doing it out of that sort of fear that everyone's going to think we're not doing enough or we're not important enough if we're not busy. I tell people all the time, I only schedule my days to 40%. I cannot wait to hang up from this interview because Jack and I are going to go get lunch. To me, it's way more fun to not be really, really busy. And it's way more fun to really work on the stuff that matters most to you. So that's kind of my campaign, is to help people not be so busy.
In thinking about the 4 burners, and I think that health one is an easy one, especially doing what we all do, which is, sitting in front of computers like we're all doing now.
I'm standing, by the way, right now, just a heads up. I'm going to stand up.
Go.
Yep.
So great way to flummox my point. But how do you all, we're talking a bit about time management too, and I think it's easy to forget. How does everybody make time for the healthy side of things? Anne?
So I keep 2 appointments with myself. Number one is, the first is actually technically with my personal trainer, who I go visit 3 times a week. And, if I don't show up, she doesn't get paid. So for me, that's really motivating because I love her and I want her to get paid and I want her to do well. And I want her to help me do well. So that's number one. So kind of having an appointment with somebody really helps. Just gym memberships didn't work for me because, again, see my previous point about world's best procrastinator. So even though I wanted to, I never quite would make it. And then the second appointment I always keep with actually another being is my little dog who's right here curled up in a little C next to my bed. Sleeping on her bed next to my desk. And so,
Wait, you're sleeping on your dog's bed? I'm confused.
I'm sleeping. No, she's sleeping on her bed next to my desk here.
Got it.
In my tiny house. And I love taking her out for a walk because I just love seeing a little joy on her face, which sounds like really squishy, but it's true. So that's the other commitment that I keep. And those 2 things keep me not just fit, but also sane because when I walk her, it's really great thinking time for me.
Chris?
I got nothing. What kind of appointments do I keep all the time?
Yeah, for the healthy stuff.
Oh, I don't know. That's daily for me. So that's what I've done is one really simple thing. I've decided that anything that really matters most in my life, I need to elevate it to the same level as eating and sleeping. So training is on that level. So eat, sleep, and train to me are things that I do daily. You don't go, I forgot to eat all day for 24 plus hours. I mean, some people maybe forget a few meals, but usually we all have some way of remembering that what we need to do. So there's that. And then the, anything that just kind of matters at that depth to me is something I make sure happens. Do you know what I mean? So it's just built in. And so at that point, I think, the hope is that every day I'm keeping those appointments. So I don't allow for days off in my fitness schedule, even though some days I'm not necessarily lifting. I'm usually doing stretching and other stuff to augment that. And I don't know. I think it just makes it a lot easier. But it's all the things that we say really matter to us in life. We have way too many things on that list usually. And so once we learn how to parse that down a little bit, then what really remains is what we do. I'm sure Anne has a writing regimen that she does every single day. That's thousands of words. And, though Anne likes to procrastinate at times, you're quite a producer of content as well. So I would say we have that in common.
Yeah, one of the things that I do too is I'm kind of making fun of myself a little bit about the procrastination thing because the reality is yes, I do produce an awful lot, but I make an appointment with myself first, and so it's sort of similar to what Chris is saying, although he's way more articulate than I am. So, but I try not to schedule meetings in the morning because I know that that's my most productive time for writing. That's when my thoughts are most clear, and so just that kind of stuff, like really making myself a priority before I can give to other people. It's that whole analogy of putting the oxygen mask over your own face first before assisting those seated with you. I definitely do that, with certain tasks that I want to make a priority that I think are important, because otherwise writing doesn't get done. Stuff just doesn't happen. And more than that, I'm just not happy, So if I'm not writing regularly, then I'm truly not a very happy person. So that's important to me. So it's important to, in my world anyway, it's important for me to more or less make an appointment with myself, block that time out and kind of hold that sacred.
Chris, I really like what you're saying around, you don't forget, if you make it a priority like eating or breathing, you don't forget to eat or breathe. You just like you don't forget to move your body in whatever form that means, exercise, stretching, lifting weights. I think when you frame it that way, it almost sounds silly, right? Like, of course, like you hesitate to answer that question about building it in because it's just what you do. Like getting up in the morning, you just do it.
Right. There's a lot of things, like I was trying to say, we say that things are important to us, but they're not really important to us. There are things that we say are important to us. Man, I really got to learn French because French people are awesome. And I'm going to do some French learning, right? Like that's one of those things that people will say. And it's bullpucky because, unless you really suddenly have a client there or, you're trying to hook up with some French date or something, it's just not as important to you. And so I think that once we start really plucking away at what really matters, what we really think we're going to try to get at, everything else just kind of lands itself on that. So, there's a real difference between somebody who's groaning and mumbling and like, oh, I just didn't want to go to the gym today, versus when you feel like it's really core and part and parcel of your existence. People who are in training don't think that way. And so, there's parts of our life that we, right now it's easy for me to get to the gym. Like that is not a challenge in my life. It is really easy for me to write thousands of words a day. It is not easy for me to be a salesperson because it's one of those things I don't like. And so that's the one I'm working on. I'm working on how to improve that because my business requires sales. So I think that, in sort of understanding the work talk ethic, the goal is that, we really have to, you don't necessarily have to chase after all your weaknesses, but if there's something that is really vital and crucial to how you operate your business, you've got to really work hard and put yourself in that spot.
That's really good.
It's.
Nick,
still haven't learned that. No, I was just. It was. What have you found? Because I have the same. And it's another place where there's a fitness parallel because, realizing that sales is part of my business and I'm trying to focus more there. What do you some of that stuff that is like eating your vegetables that you don't like doing, that is a weakness, how do you overcome a hurdle like that?
Who, me? I would say it just kind of, if it's really vital to what you're doing, you'll kind of find a way to do it. The thing like sales is I'd like to be able to pay my mortgage most months, and I would like to eat food that's a little bit more than a cup of rice. So I find ways. And I think that one of those things that people also tend to do is we love comfort. We love to seek comfort and we love to avoid any kind of pain, and fear counts as pain, et cetera, et cetera. So in seeking comfort, one of the things we do quite a lot is we're like, oh, phew, I made a sale. I think I'll go lay down and rest now. Whew, time for some rest. Got that sale. But that is, my biggest professional failing to date was really taking 2010 for granted. And 2010, I was just turning money away at all corners, saying no to whatever I wanted to, and just burning money. I bought a Camaro cash that year because why not? And every year since there's been some new interesting challenge to the business. And I would say that now what I really respect and appreciate is that if I want to succeed, I need to make certain things canon to my life. And I love this little bit about Yo-Yo Ma, where somebody kind of new to his staff saw Yo-Yo Ma practicing and was like, wow, he's like the world's best cellist. Why is he still practice 3 hours a day? And they're like, why do you think he's the world's best cellist? Same thing.
I have one non-segue question, and then we're gonna wrap, Chris, so you can grab some lunch with your better half. I want to ask the question around email, and I'm not talking about email marketing, what I used to do. I'm talking just email and how you manage your inbox, because I know we've talked with lots of guests on this show about it, and I still never forget, to this day, the conversation we had with Seth Godin. People used to say, well, how did you get Seth Godin on our show? And we always say, well, Nick emailed him. And he happened to have a book that just came out. But Nick emailed him and he replied. And he said to us very clearly, he replies to, or at least sees all of his email, whether he chooses to reply or not. And I know both you, Chris, and Ann are both very good at responding to email, even if it's just a short, hey, got it, thanks, or whatever. I'm curious how your management of email has changed over the years so that you can efficiently manage it, if that is the case, and how you're doing with that now, and making sure that email does not dominate your day. So, Ann, I'll start with you.
I try not to look at email until the afternoon, generally, just because it's kind of a time sink for me. So when I'm So as I mentioned, I tend to reserve mornings to do super focused work, and then in the afternoon is when I can, when I'm getting a little bit fatigued and I feel like I'm ready for just kind of a change of pace. Then I'll respond to a lot of email then. So that's technically or typically what I'll do. I'll sort of batch it and respond that way. But honestly, it's like I feel like I don't have a handle on email. It's like a lot of times I feel like I'm driven by email versus me managing it. So that said, even though I do tend to not look at it in the morning at the same time, it does overwhelm me. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how you guys do it. I don't know that there's a perfect answer to that. But.
Yeah, no. To be clear, there is no perfect answer. I'm just, I think it's helpful for others listening to the show because for me, I feel like email is one universal thing, no matter what business you're in. But I think especially when you put yourself out there as, hey, contact me. Here's my email address, and some people take advantage of that. Some people abuse that. Chris, I feel like again, you've gotten better. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just one point of view from my perspective. But I feel like you do a good job of managing your inbox. Is it all smoke and mirrors?
No, I am the first thing I should say is I'm the only guy who sees my inbox. I mean, I have a contact form that Ron will answer, which is good for me, but I have access, Ron Hood, I have access to my whole inbox and I do it myself. It's funny to have this conversation because I was just whining about this to Jacqueline yesterday or the day before. And I was just like, my inbox is just full of people asking me for crap. You know what I mean? And I really know why people stop answering their emails. It's because it's just stuffed full of requests. And, please God, don't send me an email without a request in it because you're trying to be nice to me because I'll hate you more. But what doesn't come is, kind of like, hey, I just had this really cool idea. And I got an email today from Jay Bear that was like really helpful. And it was like, I would like to do this thing for you. And I think you'll find it useful. And I was like, this is great. And I can, why I remember that email? Because out of the other 170 emails I got, that was the only one like it. And I'm not trying to whine, and it's great to get emails, except that it's just like all the emails are basically, if you strip away all the content, it's basically, hey, Chris, could you do this thing for me? Because it'll really benefit me. Hey, Chris, can you do this thing for me? Because it'll really benefit me. There's jack shit that it's doing for me. But, can you please eat up a few hours of your day every day, helping all these other people who are in no way contributing anything back to you, except that they seem to say you're a nice guy.
And Chris, for the most part, do you just hit delete on those then? I mean,
no,
again, I'm saying that
I'm
guilty
idiot.
as charged too. I've done
people.
that plenty. So do you just delete or what do you do?
A lot of times I hit delete,
okay.
And that's recent. That's new. I used to just do it. Like I used to just respond because it's like, well, I don't know. I'd hate to, I used to have this horrible emotional problem of thinking that someone's going to think, oh, now he's too big for his britches. But then I just realized that there's really like this incredible scale of the person who has least invested any time or effort or attention in me is the person who asks for the most. The person who is actually part of the system and part of my community, I couldn't even tell you that they asked me for something because it didn't even feel like an ask because, that's what I do is I help the people that I serve. So I would say that the only takeaway from this is that you know what I loathe? I loathe email autoresponders that tell me how important and busy you are, that you're only going to respond to me in the afternoon. No. Don't lob an inbox message to me telling me that you are going to write back to me later because you've just doubled my inbox by doing that. It's not interesting. And I'm not like, oh, that's really good. I'm kind of curious also when you poop. So I'm going to hit reply and ask you that question. I don't care when you hit reply. Just reply when it's useful to you. And it's amazing. I mean, I once had this like problem with a really big company. I shouldn't name Dell. And Michael Dell's like somebody who reports directly to Michael sent me this really ridiculous email that said, "Hi, Chris. I am not going to email you today. I'm going to email you tomorrow." And I wrote back and I wrote, "Hi, Linda. Well, evidently you emailed me today because there it is in my box. And I don't know who you are, but you can email me whatever day makes you happiest."
So my favorite is the email courier. It's my favorite phrase is you can look it up on Urban Dictionary. It's the person that comes to your desk. I know none of us work at a desk where people come up to, but imagine somebody tweets you, right, and says, "Hey, just want to let you know I'm going to send you an email." Or actually, it's more of the, "Did you get the email I just sent you?" Like 3 minutes after they sent it. I just tore into somebody about that last week because, again, it was this really helpful person making an introduction to some person I don't really need the introduction to. And
the person had asked me to come on his podcast, which maybe I will. So then my friend comes and doubles down on it and then triples down on it through Facebook and says, I'm not sure if you're getting my emails, but I'm really trying to introduce you. So now I'm like never going to talk to this person again. So, I mean, that's just kind of how I've become with it. But, if you detect a sense of bitterness, there is. And the only reason I'm trying to put that out there is because I'm probably one of the most approachable guys I know. And the problem is that by doing so, I'm just making it easier to make it harder for anybody else who actually wants something useful.
Speaking of being useful, and was that a winning segue? We are at the point in our supersized 100th episode when we are asking a new feature that we added after you both were on. We've asked every guest for the 3 apps that they can't live without. I don't know between Ann and Chris if someone's got all 3 of them right now, or
I could go.
That's just
rock
like
and roll. Let's go. Sound excited.
I could
Containing it well.
All right, so my 3 apps, and they're my 3 things I couldn't live without. Honestly, I could live without any of these, but would I live as well? That's the question. I love Instagram because it's just fun. I just do it for fun, and I just think it's a great platform. It's my favorite social platform out of every social platform. I like Snapchat because it's a really fun way to keep in touch with my teenage children. And I don't know. So I like Snapchat as a parenting tool, I guess is what I'm saying. And I also like Sakoko. It's like I don't know if it qualifies as an app. It's essentially on my laptop, on my desktop, and it kind of replicates, kind of like a Sim City for an office, and it replicates an office environment. And it's really fun because I can jump into Carrie Gorgon's office and just start, yelling at her or something. I really want to be able to put some plastic poop on the floor or something like that. We haven't gotten to that point yet. But for a virtual company, it allows us to sort of feel like an office in the best possible way without all the annoying parts of actually being in an office. So those are my 3 things.
Chris.
Oh, me? I would say the 3 are pretty close. I would like Instagram, WhatsApp, and my inbox as much as I just complained about it. But, 70% of my business comes through email in some form or another. So the courses and everything I do, Infusionsoft would be my email service provider. That's the stuff I like. I love blogging. I love the Twitter. I don't love Facebook, but I find business is seemingly working better over there. But I'm really kind of getting into WhatsApp. I think that the reason I am is because of the small private community function of it. And I love Instagram just because it's so simple. I mean, if you think about those apps, what they are is basically 2 really small, distinct chunks of Facebook owned by Facebook, but way more fun to use than the actual desktop version.
Love it. All right. Let's move into the final piece. This is the shout-outs and or plugs. And as mentioned in the pre-show, this will go live the day before Thanksgiving. So, Nick, you do not have a conference to plug, I don't think.
Oh, right? That shows what you know. So I actually had another shout-out that I'm actually going to punt on, and probably, I assume, DJ will probably pick that one up. But I wanted to mention, it just seems as we're talking about the 100th episode of the Work Talk Show, that we launched this in the month leading up to the first ever Social Brand Forum. Anne spoke there. We recorded her episode in, I think, a noisy corridor there. We tried to find someplace quiet. It ended up being real echoey. And Chris and Ann spoke at this year's Social Brand Forum, but I wanted to give a shout out. I think we've rarely had a shout out to a guest that is sitting right here, but to Chris, who is such, you talked about hanging out with your kids, and I brought 2 of my little people to the event, and my son Sam, who loves superheroes and Batman and all sorts of things, had a great time talking with Chris, got a copy of Freaks Shall Inherit the Earth, signed by Chris, proceeded to actually, by all accounts, read the thing. If you peeked in his backpack, it went to school with him, so He read the book, found it accessible. I've asked him what it's about, and he said it's about starting a business and doing good at it. So that is a testimonial right there from Mr. Sam. But a big shout out to Chris for, like you talked about, being approachable, and hopefully those people that don't abuse that. But that was my shout.
Nick, who am I supposed to give it? Who are you saving one for me? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
usually I was waiting for the text.
Yeah, usually we spar over the most recent Twitter shout out from her initials are SS. Do you have that? If not, I could say it.
Oh, I don't have that in front of me because I've closed down all of my stuff.
Sharon Sukaval. Thank you for listening to the Work Talk Show.
Oh, and she included us in an article about her favorite podcasts.
know.
Yeah. I'm going to give this is sort of a weird shout out, I think, but I'm not going to get sentimental about this being the 100th episode, but I want to give a shout out. So
said I wouldn't cry.
My daughter, so I've talked to my daughter Plunder. She's 4.5 years old, and you know at that age they just, you guys all have had kids at that age before, and they're just very observant. Like they just pick up on everything. And she must have been home one day when I was talking about what I do. But the other day, somebody was asking, like, what does daddy do? What does your dad do? And she said, I kid you not, she said he helps people quit their jobs, which is awesome because that's what Coach DJ is all about, helping people quit the jobs that they don't like and doing something they do like. So, I don't know, maybe my daughter will listen to this show at some point. It'll live on the internet forever. So a shout out to Ava Claire Waldo for just being the smartest little girl I know. Oh. Chris, you're up, and then Ann, you get the final word. Shout out, plug, both.
I was trying to say, think of somebody who told me that what I do is to help people get a real job, but, as like a spin on yours. My shout out is to Brandon Webb. So Brandon Webb's an author. He runs force12media.com. He runs all different kinds of really interesting military-based stuff. He trained U.S. Navy SEAL snipers, including Chris Kyle, who's by Thanksgiving, I would imagine his movie will be out, which is American Sniper. But Brandon Webb is like far more than that. He was one of the only guys I know that has a New York Times nonfiction bestseller without a physical book. He had an ebook only about the Benghazi experience. Wow. And so my shout outs to him, just because it was one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. And it was just piled full of stuff I didn't expect. So he's at Brandon T. Webb with 2 B's. And by the way, Nick, it was so fun to spend time with Sam and Harry. That was probably 2/3 of my favorite part of the event.
Thank you.
Ann Handley.
That was really nice. So I don't know. I think, God, there's so many people. I mean, I would love to give a shout to Carrie Gorgone. I think she's doing an amazing job, just, with the podcast at Profs and this more generally. She's a fantastic speaker. She's a wonderful person. Sometimes it can be hard working with friends, but we just have a blast. I love working with her, and it's just been great. Second person I would give a shout out to is Corey O'Loughlin, who recently left Marketing Profs. She's now doing a little bit of consulting for us, but she founded an online business. Like, talk about being an owner, Chris, on Facebook. It was a Facebook retail store, essentially called Prep Obsessed. And she's just going gangbusters. It's done fantastic. It's something that she truly loves and is truly passionate about, and she made it into a business. And so I have nothing but respect for her, and she's just a good friend. And I miss her as part of Profs, but I just couldn't be happier or more proud of her. So that's my second shout out. And just because I'm on a roll, I would also give a shout out to you, DJ, because I think that what you're doing is important and it's amazing. And I have a lot of respect for the transition that you're making and the way that you're helping people. So thank you for that. And thank you for having me here.
Oh, I'm getting a little sentimental too.
I said I wouldn't cry.
I said I wouldn't. I know. Well, Nick, I guess this is where you do your wrap up. Is that how we do it? I forget.
It is. But I'm going to first say a big thank you to you both for being here and helping us celebrate.
Big, you're welcome.
And
Where's the cake? Is there cake?
Oh, we didn't send them their cake.
Oh, I delivered it to the big house. It's not a tiny house.
I sent yours to the big house.
It's at the big house.
And Chris, yours is laying in that mail pile. You just can't see it.
It says final request.
Yeah, that was the final notice to receive that cake. All right, well, we will link up to everything that we've talked about, everything, at worktalkshow.com. You can also find information for connecting with us there via various social networks. You can subscribe to the show via iTunes, Stitcher Radio, RSS, and more. Speaking of iTunes, a great reminder to hop over and give us a quick rating or review. Help others find the show. And as always, a big shout out to our tireless Chief Technical Officer, Jess Ostroff, over at Don't Panic Management. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard.
And I'm DJ Waldo.
And we'll see you on the internet.
I mean, I'm just saying, we finished right on time. Is that possible?
It might be.
You both,
it was all
talk.
about
You both can talk now. Chris, I stole this from you. This is the secret portion, but I call it the not so secret portion of the show.
Oh, very good.
So I tell
Good
people,
plan.
and then it gets, it's just easier to tell them.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks to both of you. It really was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I actually, it was a little more serious than I thought it would be, but in a good way.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I had a party hat, but I lost it.
Is it in the pile?
It could be in this pile. I just don't know.
Anne, any parting words you want to say in the not so secret show, or are you spent? And
I got nothing.
Usually we don't have to script the not so secret portion. It's like usually people are like
being very careful about this as well.
Yeah, jeez.
Like to say something you could or not, or not.
So
instead, we're just boring and hungry.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because I normally like eat before like the 1 o'clock time frame, but
I was going to say,
happen.
you're eating lunch at 2 o'clock.
It's because I was waiting for Jack, and she's always hungry, so it works out just fine.
And I also, being the hardy Midwesterner, have not put food in my face yet either. So.
And it's 11 o'clock here, and I've eaten 4 times already. So there.
Jesus, Waldo.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. All right, so we'll let you guys know when this is live. Chris, I know that you don't normally do hour-long podcasts, so I do appreciate your time. And as always, so much fun to
I don't
talk to
appreciate your time, man. See you.
No.
No, but I know Anne just, is this is like right in Anne's wheelhouse. This is procrastination. So I'm actually doing, I feel like we did her a favor today.
There you go. So
The check.
It's legit, right?
In fact, this wasn't even an ask of Anne. This was a favor. This was like Anne saw this in her inbox. She's like, oh, yes, I'll do it.
I'll do it, right?
All right, so thanks both of you. We'll let you know when she is live. And Anne, hopefully I'll see you next week. Maybe.
You just might. Okay.
I'll talk to you
sounds
tomorrow.
good.
You're going to be on my podcast, other podcast. So tomorrow,
I am?
don't forget.
Wait a second. Am I? That's not on my calendar.
Yes, it is. You're talking about your passion for writing.
All right, I don't have that. I'll have to find it.
Look again.
Hey, what's this
Schedule
button
once
do?
just sent you an email reminder. Look, I promise. Chris is gone. Goodbye. Chris left. We're done.
Okay.
This has been The Work Talk Show. For the latest show notes and linky goodness, visit us online at worktalkshow.com. Remember, you can subscribe to the show and leave a review at iTunes. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.